Tonight, the remnants of Nicole sweep through the eastern United States on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for November 12th. Around the world right now, the tropics are fairly quiet, with only the remnants of Nicole active right now, as well as one or two other areas of interest that we'll go into shortly. 87 storms have formed around the world so far, which is just 5 away from the annual average. In the Atlantic then, on day 165 of hurricane season, it is just the remnants of Nicole that are active now. All the other areas of interest that are out further east have gone, and it's just Nicole's remnants, very large remnants it should be mentioned, sweeping through the US East Coast and towards Canada. In the Eastern Pacific there is nothing active and nothing expected in the next 5 days. It looks by all accounts that the season is probably done in the Eastern Pacific. In the Western Pacific, an area of interest has a high chance of development according to our analyst team, right out there into the eastern part of the ocean, not far from the international date line. High chance of development, it probably won't last very long if it does get to storm status and will generally move northward. And in the Indian Ocean, we've marked an area of interest in the South Indian Ocean to the southwest of Indonesia. There are also possibilities for other areas to form in the northern Indian Ocean in the next 5 days and beyond. Let's check the satellite imagery then. This is what the Atlantic looks like today. On the top part of the image you can clearly see Nicole's influence. Always been a large storm, but very top heavy now when you look at its northern extent, pushing out towards the northeast. Extremely large, but near the center of it it's probably fairly calm now. Down in the eastern Pacific, still looking pretty quiet. There's a few little thunderstorms there from the intertropical convergence zone, what's left of it, and dry air still very much dominating the eastern Pacific. It looks unlikely that we'll see anything else form here. Let's take a proper look at Nicole. Here is some RGB imagery visible there, turning into the shortwave infrared in the nighttime imagery, and take a look at the radar overlaid on top of that, and you can see how the storm has squashed and stretched north to south. That tends to happen quite a lot with extratropical cyclones. They get hemmed in really, but you can see a lot of rain there occurring across Pennsylvania into Ohio, down towards West Virginia of course, which is where the center of the storm, well not a storm anymore, but depression, X-depression is ramming into, and you can see all of those bands on the northern side around towards the eastern side, and one or two little bits of convection still blowing up actually just off the coast of New Jersey. So there is still potential for quite a bit more rain, say somewhere around 4 or 5 inches possible in some of those areas. We'll have a proper look on the models a little bit later on. Elsewhere in the Atlantic it's pretty quiet. You can see 1 or 2 other areas there that look interesting, but they don't have any rotation, they don't really have any tropical characteristics, so we're not expecting any surprises anytime soon. Western Pacific right now, you'll see on the right hand side that system developing, and it is looking pretty good when you look at that satellite imagery. Higher latitude, around about 20 degrees north, it's on level with the northern tip of Luzon, and very far east over the very open waters of the open Western Pacific. It's an extremely vast ocean as we know, and is expected to turn northwards. Indian Ocean, you can see in general a lot of unsettled weather over India, and a lot of convection blowing up over southern India and over the South Indian Ocean there to the southwest of Indonesia. That's where that area of interest is. And in the Australian region, there's a few bouts of rain that are pushing through the southern part of Australia, and a little bit further north as well, smaller pockets, mostly in the interior, and not much of it reaching the more populated areas. Looks like Adelaide might be in for a rainy day though. Sea surface temperatures look like this in the eastern Pacific right now. They are still favourable for a large chunk there off the coast of Mexico, and still 26 degrees well into the Gulf of California. In the Atlantic, we're still looking at good temperatures as well, 28 degrees plus for the Caribbean Sea as a whole, and still extending a little bit into the Gulf of Mexico. You'll note there that where Nicole tracked, the temperatures really aren't very good. The only part of the Gulf, really the northern part, that goes bad at this time of year. Still a strong Gulf Stream as well, by the way. Indian Ocean, still very warm temperatures there as well, 28 degrees plus, pushing close to 30 degrees in the northern part of the Bay of Bengal. In the Western Pacific, still looking decent as well in the areas that matter. The Philippine Sea, where we often see late season activity, we're still looking at 28 or 29 degrees there, and one or two little pockets of 30 degrees further south and all along the equator and through the Indonesian islands. Southern Hemisphere as well, just quickly looking there, temperatures still extending a little bit further southwards. The anomalies generally above average in the Western Pacific, East Pacific generally below, with the La Nina effect still there and still staying around the same as it has been. The Atlantic is above average though, so maybe we can't rule out very late season activity as we enter the later part of November. Oceanic heat content is still good in the Caribbean Sea, so we can't rule out a late season storm. But looking at the rest of the Atlantic, it is starting to simmer down. And into the Eastern Pacific, hardly anything left there, and in the Western Pacific it is also calming down a little bit there as well, apart from the very low latitudes near the Marshall Islands probably, and some of Micronesia, Eastern Micronesia. Let's check the computer models then, and this is what the GFS has in store for the next few days. Take a look at the remnants of Nicole, reaching almost hurricane force there as it crosses the Atlantic as an extratropical cyclone as it leaves Newfoundland and then scurries across the ocean towards Western Europe. Watch that sequence again and you'll see the tropical storm force winds affecting Atlantic Canada, and off they go to hurricane force briefly and then swirling around another low pressure system to form a massive extratropical cyclone, eventually reaching Iceland. Western Pacific, take a look at this system that develops. You can see it there forming quite quickly. Does it actually get a proper rotation? GFS not so sure on that. I imagine it does, and becomes quite a strong storm as a post-tropical cyclone heading towards the islands of Alaska and whamming some of those islands at hurricane strength as well, it should be mentioned. So certainly got a future ahead of it in the extratropical stakes, but will it get to tropical storm status? We'll see. Indian Ocean, watch out here for potentially 3 areas of interest. The one that we're definitely watching right now in the southern part, but look in the north as well, in the Arabian Sea and in the Bay of Bengal. 3 systems overall that we're looking at there that get rotation, a depression maybe in the Arabian Sea, and possibly a tropical storm forming in the Bay of Bengal at a lower latitude. Can't rule out any of these 3 systems. The Indian Ocean does tend to get going sometimes in November, and even into December you can see some systems in the north. Looking at the rainfall estimates then for the northeastern United States into Canada, and you can see the hotspots there for rainfall over the next 7 days, and it's probably the east coast of that eastern lake there. I forget its name, goodness me, but into New York State and further north towards the northeast, towards Montreal and towards New Brunswick, and then towards Prince Edward Island and to Newfoundland. Those are the highest amounts of rain expected there, and you can see some decent amounts elsewhere as well, getting up to around 4 inches in parts of Atlantic Canada too. Into Pennsylvania around 2 to 3 inches, and towards the south, the coastal areas of New England, you're looking at probably maximums there of 3 inches as well. Check the longer range. This is day 5 through 10. Let's see what happens near the Philippines. There is a potential system that pushes through there 17th, 18th of November and gets stronger in the South China Sea. A small system, compact, and looks like it just about reaches typhoon status briefly and then starts to weaken as it hovers towards the coast of Vietnam, slows down as it does so. So we'll keep watching that one closely. That's day 5 to 10. And we'll be intrigued to see whether that happens. Typical late season storm track, it has to be said. And into the Indian Ocean, all these 3 systems once again, the Arabian Sea one fizzles out. The Indian Ocean one looks pretty big in terms of its influence, and continues towards the coast of India, probably Tamil Nadu province there, I think, for a potential landfall. But that's quite late on, day 9 or 10. The other system down in the southern Indian Ocean looks like that one fades away too, although it doesn't die off completely by the time we reach the end of that model run. At this point, that's all the serious stuff done with. Scan the barcode and take a look at the Force 13 merch store. We've got all of our products on display there, as well as our individual and full season storm animation requests that we can fulfill for you, and are still waiting for Hone t-shirts. There as long as we're waiting for Hone, which I think will be quite a while. In the long range, this is day 10 through 16. That tropical storm weakens as it reaches the coast of central to northern Vietnam there. This is the very long range, and another system eventually forming near Palawan around the 26th of November and moving towards the northwest and then west towards Vietnam as well. Another quite likely track, but whether it actually happens in this scenario or not, it's a very long range prediction, and really it is anyone's guess. And into the Indian Ocean, the system that we were tracking that became a tropical storm died off. Well, guess what? It comes back again from the dead round about here, the 25th, 26th of November. There it is again, part 2 of this potential system, and it does get a little bit stronger as well, getting towards hurricane status right at the end of that loop there as it continues on its way towards the west-southwest. If it kept going at that trajectory, it would probably end up reaching the tip of northern Madagascar, but it should weaken before that point, if it happens at all, of course. We're only 16 days from Hurricane Week 2022. I've lost the word for it. Oh dear. Very well anticipated feature on the way. Hope you enjoy it. 6 days of full-on activity and our charity stream on the Sunday. November 12th, 1990. Typhoon Mike, one of the underrated absolute giants of a typhoon. Some people suggest that it may have even been stronger than Tip. I doubt that, but it was still an extremely powerful typhoon. It was just about to come off its Category 5 peak during the course of today, and we also had Tropical Storm Nell that was about to make a weak tropical storm landfall in Vietnam. Back to this year, and we're reaching the last dregs of the North Indian Ocean activity, we think. The next name on the Atlantic naming list is Owen. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Seymour, and in the Central Pacific, it is still Hone. Looking towards the Western Pacific, the next name now is Yamaneko. In the North Indian Ocean, it's Mandus, followed by Mocha. And in the Southern Hemisphere, in the Australian region, we are still waiting out for Darian. Who knows what kind of storm that will be awarded to. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, Chaniso, and in the South Pacific, Harley. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.